Hey everybody, it's Tim and Terry here from Money Matters for Everybody.
Hello. So we just got finished talking about how we save money on insurance. And one of the things that came up recently for me as I was reviewing the videos that we have here on YouTube is that we talked about the importance of budgeting. I really did. I gave a budgeting overview. But kind of talking about, we went through the baby steps, the Dave Ramsey baby steps. And there's a little bit of like controversy around Dave Ramsey and the baby steps and blah blah blah, and so people will say, oh, that's great, like the Dave Ramsey steps you'll never build wealth with, or just the condescending tone of the people who are probably poor, right? Probably like they claim that, oh, if I followed Ramsey, I retired at 42 and I would have blah blah blah. First off, if you say something on YouTube or Instagram, I don't believe you half the time anyway. Like if you're bragging that you have all of this wealth saved at the age of 42 because you cashed in on real estate, and good for you, I'm happy for you, but if you have debt, you don't have financial peace. If you have a business and your business has debt, you don't have financial peace. And we're coming into a time, I was talking to TJ on the daily dog walk this morning about how money is drying up, funds are drying up. And if you're a small business that relies on debt, you're in trouble.
Right.
I am preparing for a storm. I'm preparing for, Ramsey recommends 3 to 6 months worth of emergency funds. I'm preparing for 12. In a period of 12 months, if the entire market crashes,
if both of us were to lose our jobs and we couldn't find any way of making any money.
We are of the mindset that you can make money. There's so many ways to make money in this country. And
Legally,
yes. There's so many ways to make money. So if there were a position or a situation where we would be out of work for over 12 months and we'd have to kind of pivot, then I think 12 months is a really nice buffer without having to touch retirement funds,
right,
without having to touch anything else, just emergency funds. And again, if you go into a position where you have to tuck down, like all of a sudden, if you're both out of work, you're spending on needs,
right,
not wants. So here I wanted to talk about baby steps and what we did and how we did it. And I feel like we should do this frequently enough that it just becomes so ingrained in people see us and they go, you guys did the baby steps.
Yeah.
And I know the baby steps, I can name them, So now there are 7 baby steps if you follow Dave Ramsey's baby steps, but we have added like pre-baby steps. So it's a little bit different. But step 1 is that you get on a budget. You stop the bleeding. You recognize there's a problem, or maybe even not. You recognize that you don't want a problem.
Right.
You get on a budget.
Yeah, getting on the budget, makes you know where your money is going.
How much is coming in, how much is going out.
And it also helps you pinpoint problem areas in your spending where you can see where you're spending more money than you should be. Mm-hmm. Find out easy areas to cut back on.
Maybe it's subscriptions. When we started budgeting, we realized how much money we were spending on food and eating out.
Yeah, our eating out budget was a lot
when we first started. We were living like kings and queens, but we were not making kings and queens salaries.
I mean, literally, our dining out budget when we first started budgeting was more than double our total grocery and dining out budget now.
Yes.
And that's...
it wasn't budgeting. We weren't budgeting.
Right.
We were just kind of putting it in as we went.
Right. And that was before we had 2 teenagers in the house.
Yeah.
So you can just imagine how much it costs to eat out now,
yeah,
with 2 teenagers.
So get on a budget. That's the first step in wealth building. You need to get on a budget. You need to know what you're spending. You need to have a good handle on what's coming in and what's going out. Step 2, stop using credit cards. If you're like we were, and we are not special, right? You overspend when you're tapping it or swiping it or plugging the chip in. Like you overspend. Now, we're not perfect on this.
I mean, we still use it occasionally, but then we pay it right away.
But that still leads to overspending.
Right.
I think that's at the end of the day, like if you have cash in hand and you're putting stuff on the belt and you're putting stuff on the belt and you're like, I don't know if I have enough to cover this. And then you look and say, do I really need everything that's on here? Stop using those credit cards. And then the third step that we would do is, if you have debt, is to write it down. Write down a list of your debt, right? Don't know what you have for 1 month, like write down every bill that comes in so you have an idea as to what you have. And if you're on a budget, so I would spend that next cycle kind of like writing. We use EveryDollar as our budgeting app. It is a free app that you can use, but you can put in EveryDollar your debt. Say you have a car loan and you have the payment is $250 a month. You could put a note in there and say, all right, the payment is $250 a month, but the remaining balance is $11,000. So and then I would write that down. I would write down a list of all of your debts, and then sort them smallest to largest, total balance, not payment, right? and then go ahead and you're going to pay the minimum on everything except for
one that
the
you're targeting.
smallest balance. And you're going to be able to swipe that out pretty quickly.
And then once you pay that one off, you take the payment you were making to that one plus the minimum
Roll it
on the
over to
next
the next
one,
one.
just move to the next one.
Yeah.
Just keep doing that until you've tackled them all.
And really, on average, it takes people about 2 years to get out of debt. I think for us, like, we kind of just, we tried to do it on our own for a couple years. Like, we were like, yeah, we're getting on a budget. Yeah, we're spending less than we make. We have a budget. We have a good idea as to what we're paying. And then Dave Ramsey came to our church one day and lit a fire I know for me, I don't know for you, but it was like the chains of debt are going to, I don't know, weigh you down. But it's getting out of debt that has freed us up mentally to focus on what's next. Being an employee in the United States is the most expensive. You're the most burdened with taxes if you're an employee. So it gives you the flexibility to move into your next phase of freedom.
Yeah, dreaming and figuring out where your passions lie and what you want to do to make your living rather than what your job is.
Exactly. So, and I've been very clear, like, I provide financial coaching. I'm working on courses to help provide coaching or education lessons for families that are sending a child to school, to college, if they are considering student loans, because nobody is really sounding the alarm out there to tell parents and students, young adults, that debt isn't the only option,
right,
and that the student loans today aren't the same student loans of yesterday. And that the rules of the game have changed. And if you don't have an understanding of financial concepts, basic financial concepts, wise money principles, you're doomed. I couldn't imagine sending my children out and saying, yeah, sorry, like, everybody takes out student loans, you're just gonna have to do it too.
Just have to do it and pay for it later.
That's normal, everybody does it. And then these children wind up leaving college with, I don't know, sometimes 100,000. I think the worst I've heard was $1 million.
Yeah.
That's the worst that I've heard thus far. And I think, oh my goodness, like, the despair that somebody must feel. I had like 30 grand in student
Our
loan debts.
total
Overall
student loans
was probably like 100 over the years, like multiple degrees.
Yeah. I mean, between the two of us, our student loans combined were about that of a car payment at the time, not a current day car payment.
My student loan payments when I graduated from Penn State were $161 a month, and they would be paid, I think, in either 10 or 20 years. And I think yours were $140 a month.
Yeah.
And my total for Penn State, I think, was 25, and I can't remember what. I think yours was less than that.
23, 22.
I think it was less than that even. I should have written it down. And then I went back to school to become a nurse. And because of convenience, I went to a more expensive institution than the community college. Community college I could have paid for in cash, but I wouldn't have been able to work in the job that I was currently working in. So I elected to take out student loans because that was normal. If you didn't have the money, that's what you did. And I think that it simply is a matter of people understanding what they're getting themselves into. I can't imagine having a child having $100,000 in student loan debt and having to work and not even caring what your job is.
Yeah.
Not being paralyzed and not being able to figure out what your future, what were you meant to do? Like, what were you meant to do? Baby steps. Get on a budget, stop using credit cards, write down what your debts are, your list of debts, smallest to largest. Then you move into the next phase of Dave Ramsey's baby steps. His step 1. Set aside a starter emergency fund of $1,000. This starter emergency fund is simply a fund that says, I'm going to protect you from mayhem, right? It's not like I'm going to protect you from an economic collapse.
Right.
If you are concerned that you are going to lose your job in the next 3 to 6 months, your job is to build that emergency fund as high as you can to get yourself to 3 to 6 months worth of expenses.
Yeah, I mean, $1,000 basic emergency fund. And some people will say, I don't know where I'm going to get $1,000. I mean, you can look around your house and find stuff that you're not using
That you could sell.
that you could sell and make up easily $1,000.
Chances are, if you write out your budget, you'll find $1,000.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, you can get a side hustle. You can go drive for Lyft or Uber. You can go deliver pizzas. Please don't give me that, because if you're broke, you need to get to work. And then the next step, you roll through that debt snowball, and you get yourself out of debt, except for the mortgage, everything except for the mortgage. And that process usually takes people about a year and a half on average. This is the phase where you're really challenging what's the needs versus what's the wants, right? If it's not a need, then you're not buying it. If it's a want, put it on a list. Put it on a list on the fridge. This is something I want, how much it's going to cost you. For the longest time, I had a list of wants on the fridge, remember? And we just worked through, and how many times did the want go away?
Yeah.
We just would have spent the money, and then it went away. And then the next step is you set aside 3 to 6 months worth of expenses.
You get that fully funded emergency fund.
put that away in a high yield savings account, which I really hope they don't go away. I've got to tell you, I really hope they don't go away. I'm loving it. Having that little buffer. It's not enough to keep up with inflation, but it really is. Every little bit helps.
Yeah, it sure beats the amount that the regular savings account was earning us.
A penny saved is a penny earned, for sure, indeed.
Absolutely.
And then you move on once you're completely out of debt and you have 3 to 6 months worth of an emergency fund. Then you can go on to steps 4, 5, and 6, which are done. So 1, 2, and 3 are done in step by step, a stepwise approach. 4, 5, and 6 are done simultaneously. So now you should have, if you anything like us, a couple $1,000s a month of margin.
Yeah.
Or maybe not. Maybe you have a situation where you finish baby steps 1, 2, and 3, and you're young enough, and you have a baby, and mom wants to stay home, be a stay-at-home mom. Which honestly, I was not a stay-at-home mom, but man, I really have a lot of respect for stay-at-home moms. I really think that to be home with your children, because you're the one that loves your children more than anybody. There's no daycare in the world that's going to love your children like you do. There's no daycare in the world that's going to do the same things that you would do. And you could be like me, where I was like, I'm not going to be home with my kids. I'm just not wired for that. But looking back, I feel like I really wish I would have prayed through that season a little bit more.
You did it for periods of time. You were home.
I stayed home for like that first year with both of them. But yeah, and then Ryan, after he got kicked out of his fourth daycare, then he came home with us. Super brilliant kid. It's a gift of his, so he just wasn't happy. So anyhow, and then you work through like steps 4, 5, and 6. So at this point now, you're investing 15% into your retirement. You are setting aside money for your kids to go to school, and you are putting money towards your mortgage so that you can get out of debt. And also step 7, you're being generous. You're being more generous, right? You have money set aside. So if there is a need in the community, you open up your hands, open up your wallet, and step in and say, I want to help.
I can help there. Yeah.
If you pray about it, and God tells you that this is something that is heavy on my heart, I want it to be heavy on your heart too, then you've opened up a doorway that you can be a blessing to others.
Right.
Which is awesome. So, but simply going through the budgeting process, you're going to learn a lot about yourself. And you think that you know what you spend, like I did when we didn't like put pen to paper on budget, or we didn't put it into every dollar at the time. I thought I know what I spend.
Yeah, and like those first couple months, something would pop. Oh yeah, I forgot all about that.
Mm-hmm. And then you're just like, oh my goodness, like how? Yeah. So you just want to. You learn a lot about yourself, and you learn a lot about your money, and you start learning how on this side of debt. I had already talked about last week how we went on vacation, how I have had. I don't know that you have. Neither one of us is big spenders. We're just not big spenders. Like we are spending procrastinators. Like I literally will sit down and say, okay, I want to look at this. There's a fan that I want to put in my attic because it will. I believe an attic fan, I know personally, will decrease our energy costs. It will it will ventilate the attic because the attic is so much hotter than the rest of the house. And it will make the house probably 10 degrees cooler. I mean, I have no doubt about it. The cost is probably $900 if we install it ourselves, and probably have to have the electrician come in. We have an electrician that can come in and put like a dedicated outlet for it. I've had that on my list for a year.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the last thing I got on my list and how long, like the longest that something's been on the list. I mean, the kitchen remodel has been on my mind since the day we moved in here.
Yeah.
Right? So about 9 years in, and we're just kind of like,
We've done little updates.
Yeah.
Facelift
super
stuff.
important. But if you're in the mentality of you have to save for it, step 1, and it has to be in the budget, and you have to pay cash for it. When you're going to part with your cash, it's harder. I feel like it's harder. So you just really, you find that you're very intentional with your spending. So we hope that you found this helpful. I really want to encourage you that there is so much waiting for you on the other side of debt, and that we really want that for you, for everybody at Money Matters for Everybody. We want you to find that freedom, to find that peace, and to live like no one else. All right, guys. Hope you have a great week. Take care.
Have a good one, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.